Now that we have finished the rough design of the bike, let's merge the two layers together. Make sure the rough end layer is selected. Click and hold to go to your layer tools and drag it down to merge with below. Now both of the layers are now together. We can now click on the move tool and move it to the center by dragging, and now the bike is perfectly centered, so now we can begin to use the oval tool to put in our wheels. Okay, now that we have done that, let's create a new layer for our wheels. Go to your layer editor, click add layer, click and hold to access your layer tools, and go to rename layer. And we are going to name that wheels. Click OK. And now let's go to our oval tool. The oval tool is what's going to help us make an accurate wheel. Make sure that when you're clicking and dragging the oval tool that you hold down Apple Command. This will make sure that the circle is created from the center. If for some reason it is not placed properly, you can simply click on the move tool to move it, and you can also click on the rotate tool and drag to rotate it to make sure that it's fit in perspective. Now that we have placed the ellipse where we want it, let's now duplicate it. Make sure the wheel layer is selected in the layer editor and click and hold to access your layer tools and go to duplicate layer. Now we have a duplicate of the ellipse. Go to your move tool and simply move it in perspective. So now we have a 3D wheel. Now we can click on the line tool and we can now connect the bottom and top edge of the two ellipses. So now it begins to look like a wheel that has thickness to it. After that, we can click on the eraser tool and erase the insides out of it. If the wheel becomes difficult to see because of the rough lay-in layer, you can simply go to that layer, click on the opacity slider, and simply drag it down. This will make it easier to see as we begin to add the details. Now let's merge the two wheels together using your layer tools, merge with below. And now if we turn the layer on and off, we now have one of the complete wheels. Let's go to the move tool and let's rotate it just a little bit so it fits better in perspective. Once we do that, we are going to duplicate the wheel again using the layer editor to create the inside of the wheel. So click and hold to duplicate layer, and now we're going to use the scale function of the move tool. So in the center, if you click and drag, we can now make a smaller version of the wheel, which will now be the inside. We can then rotate it however we like so that it fits in perspective. Continue to move, rotate, and scale the inside of the wheel until it looks right to you. After that, we can merge both of those layers down, and now we have one complete wheel. Before we merge both layers together, let's take the time now to go to the eraser tool and erase the insides of the wheel before we merge them together, since we will not be seeing it in the final drawing. Once we have done that, let's make sure that the top wheel layer is selected, click and hold, and go to merge with below. Now we have one complete wheel finished. After that, we can click and hold again to access the layer tools, and we can go to duplicate layer. Now grab the move tool and simply move it back, and then scale it so that it's smaller in perspective. And now we have two complete wheels. Once you have moved, scaled, and rotated the back wheel to your liking, we can then simply merge both the wheels together by clicking and holding and going to merge with below. To clear up some space in our layer editor, let's merge the perspective layer and the side view layer together using the layer tools. Now that we have cleaned up our layer editor, let's make a new layer for our details. So go to your layer editor and click add new layer, and we're going to click and hold to rename that layer, and let's rename that details. Then we can click OK. And now we can begin drawing in the final line art for the bike. Let's make sure the line tool is selected. And before we add any detail, let's zoom in so that we can make sure that our details are accurate. Hold down spacebar, hover over the zoom tool, and drag so we can zoom in a little bit. Then also use the move tool so we can center the bike. Now we can begin doing the final detail layer of the bike. Simply use the line tool to drag to make any kind of lines that you would like. At any point, if you do not like the lines that you have made, you can simply hit Apple Command Z to undo the action that you just did. So using the line tool, we can now have nice straight lines to make the final drawing for our bike. Once we have made the detail layer, we can then create a new layer and begin to paint on top of the bike. Because the line tool will only allow you to make straight lines, at any point in time while you're doing the final drawing, if you need to make a curved line, simply go to the Freestyle Stroke tool. That will allow you to make any kind of curved line that you may need in this final drawing. I am now going to switch over to the Freestyle Stroke tool so that I can begin to add all the curves that I may have missed in the final drawing of this bike. Be sure that when you're drawing the curves that you draw them in correct perspective. After this, we will create a new layer, and that will be our color layer, in which we will paint on top of our bike. At this point in the stage, feel free to make any changes that you may like, or any final design choices. If you want your lines to be thicker or thinner, simply hit the bracket keys on your keyboard until you get a size that you like. I'm going to make my lines just a little bit thinner so that I can add some depth to the bike. As we get closer to finishing the final details of the bike, let's use the zoom tool so we can zoom out to make sure that the bike looks correct from far away.